O Messenger of Allah, you know my position. There are many palm trees on my way to the mosque. And I cannot find a guide every time. The Prophet, J, answered. Can you hear the call for prayer? Yes, I can. Then, you are supposed to attend the congregation, even by crawling. Janan, Kutub al-Sit, 8, 256. The Prophet, J, says. Those who attend the mosque at dark will find a shade on the day of judgment when no shade is to be found. Ibn Maha. Other sayings of the Prophet, J, are to be found in this regard. The prayer offered in congregation is 27 times superi. Or to the one offered on one's own. Bukhari, Adan, 30. The prayer done by 2 persons is superior to the prayer done by 1 person. The prayer done by 3 persons is superior to the prayer done by 2 persons. The more their number, the more lovely their prayer is to Allah. Abu Dawud, Nasai, Imamat, 45. Those who offer late-night prayer in congregation are regarded to have spent the first half of the night, and those who offer morning prayer in congregation are regarded to have spent the second half of the night praying. Muslim, Masjid, 260. Those who attend congregation for 5 daily prayers regularly will pass the bridge from this world to paradise like a thunder. Moreover, Allah will resurrect and assemble them for judgment. Among the second generation of Muslims after the Prophet, J, those who attend congregation night and day will get as much reward as 1,000 martyrs. Kamu'l Fawed, 246. Stand in proper lines while praying in congregation, because it is a sign of perfect prayer. Abu Dawud, Salat, 93. 81,343,541,148,000 Praying in congregation advances the power of one's faith. It is a mirror of the Muslim community. The community of faith is kept through attending congregational prayer. 123,888,522,923,500. 481838074834750024117309715500 prayer. Salat, namaz. The Prophet, J, says. The person who goes to mosque for prayer after making ablution at home is like the person who goes to the Kaaba for pilgrimage after putting on ihram, a special cloth for pilgrimage. Fadal al-Amal, 275. This person is given a reward for every step he takes on the way to the mosque, and one of her sins is forgiven. He who prays in congregation from start to finish for 40 days is given 2 titles of privilege. The first is salvation from hell. The second is distancing himself, herself from hypocrisy. Muslim, Tirmizi. Allah will ask on the day of judgment, where are my neighbors? The angels will answer, O the Lord, who are your neighbors? Allah will say, those who regularly attend mosques. The Prophet, J, says, the mosque is the home of every sincere believer. And Allah assured these servants of all kinds of easiness, mercy, and convenience on the bridge from this world to paradise. Tabarani. Attending congregation is so important that the Prophet, J, seriously warned about the negative consequences of being careless about it. One of the sayings of the Prophet, J, in this regard is as follows. The prayers of those who do not attend congregation, though they hear the call for prayer, and offer their prayer where they are, with no reasonable excuse, are not accepted. The companions asked him, O Messenger, what is to be regarded as an excuse? The Prophet, J, said, it is illness or fear of danger. Abu Dawud, Ibn Maha. If a group of people cannot join congregation at mosque, they are supposed to offer their prayer together where they are. The Prophet said in this regard, N 173. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and Form. N 174. If a group of people of 3 in a village or countryside do not perform their prayer together, Satan will impose himself on them. Try to offer your prayer with other people, and do your best to join congregation, because the wolf eats a lonely sheep. Abu Dawud, Ahmad, Nasai. Attending congregational prayers for the morning and late evening prayers is of great importance. The Prophet, J, says, He who offers late evening prayer in congregation is regarded to have worshipped in the first half of the night, and he who offers morning prayer in congregation is regarded to have worshipped in all parts of the night. Muslim. If people knew the virtue of the call for prayer and standing in the first line of congregation, and if they had no other chance, but drawing lots in order that they could be the one to call for prayer and stand in the first line, they would go for drawing lots. If they knew the virtue of being an early comer for prayer in congregation, they would contest among themselves. And if they knew the reward for morning and late evening prayer, they would attend them even by crawling. Bukhari, Muslim. So, a believer is supposed to lend his heart to prayer, and his ears to the call for prayer. Participation in congregation begins with participation in the call for prayer. The companions of the Prophet, used to stop all their worldly engagements while the call for prayer was being recited in order to get ready for the mood of prayer. The hands that swung hammers and the tongues that spoke used to stop, and the roads were only for the mosque. Their hearts filled with the love of Allah used to follow the guidance described by the Prophet, 813,435,112,331,500 inches. When you hear the call for prayer, repeat the words said by the caller. Then pronounce the formula calling Allah's benediction on me. Whoever pronounce the formula calling Allah's benediction on me, Allah grants him 10 benefactions in return. This is so great a rank in paradise that it is given only to one servant. And I myself wish to be that person. And whoever wishes my intercession, it is granted to him. Muslim, Salat, 11. 123,888,522,542,500. 24117309652000 prayer, Salat, namaz. He who goes to the mosque without enjoying the deep in spirit meaning of prayer as described above gets no blessing out of his action. The saying of the Prophet, is to be remembered in this regard. The person gets what he intends by coming to the mosque. Abu Dawud. On the other hand, attending congregation grants the person a facility to keep his life under control, and acts as an agent to regiment the person's disorganized life. The saying of the Prophet, does not the person who raises his head from the position of prostration before the leader of the prayer fear that Allah might turn his head into that of donkey? Bukhari. Muslim. Points out that disorganized individuals can be trained through prayer and the individual thus can be prepared to duly stand in the presence of Allah. Otherwise, order and stability cannot be established in prayer. The final word about prayer in congregation is that every believer should have his heart attached to the mosque, because among 7 groups of people who are promised divine shade by Allah on the Day of Judgment when there is no other shade that will exist is the group of believers, who have hearts clinging to the mosque. Prayer as a unique refuge. Prayer, as the most exceptional form of worship, is also the most exceptional form of seeking refuge in Allah. Therefore, when one faces any kind of hardship, trouble, tribulation, suffering, and pain, he is supposed to turn to prayer immediately. This is the tradition which the Prophet, often put into practice. Hudhaifa said, the Prophet used to turn to prayer whenever he faced a difficult time. Ahmad, Abu Dawud, Abu Darda said, 481,838,042,735,500 inches. The Prophet used to go into the mosque whenever a storm broke out, and would stay there until it was over. He also used to pray during the eclipse of the moon or the sun. N 175. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and form. We may here elaborate on the eclipse of the moon or the sun. The day when Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet, died was a day when the moon was eclipsed. Due to this coincidence, some of the companions said, the moon eclipsed on the same day when the son of the Prophet, died. Yet the Prophet, disapproved of this and said, neither the moon nor the sun eclipses upon one's death. Muslim, Kusif, 29. On the other hand, the daughter of Abu Bakr asked Aisha, wife of the Prophet, during an eclipse of the sun, is this a sign of rage or doomsday? Aisha answered, yes. Amr bin As narrates as follows. The sun had already eclipsed. The Prophet, J, stood up for prayer. He stood so long that we thought he would never bow down. Yet he bowed down, but he again was so long that we thought he would never raise his head again. Then he went down for prostration. Again, we thought he would never raise his head. Yet he raised his head, but he kept his new position so long that we thought he would never go back to the position of prostration. Yet he then went down for prostration. We again thought the same. Yet he raised his head again. And he did the same in the second unit of the prayer. He was crying while prostrating. N 176. Then he appealed to Allah. O my Lord, have not you assured that you would not punish them when I am among them? Have not you assured that you would not punish them as long as they ask forgiveness from you? 81,343,525,527,000. The eclipse of the sun was over and it was shining again when the Prophet, J, had finished his prayer. Nasai, Abu Dawud. 123,888,520,891,500. 24117309715500 Prayer, Salat, Namaz. As these accounts display, the eclipse of the sun is not just an ordinary act of nature. It is to remind us of the divine grandeur and power. It is also a divine warning and a sign of doomsday, because having a dark sky suddenly at daytime demonstrates how both the moon and the sun bow down to Allah in accordance with the divine order, and also reflects the atmosphere of doomsday. Humans are supposed to take warning by the eclipse of the moon and the sun and thereby be wary all the time, and know that everything in this world is passing, and thereby get prepared for the hereafter, because the eclipse of the sun may not be lifted again. These kinds of warnings by Allah can be found in other areas. For example, the fault lines on earth are of this kind of warning. Allah can take the lives of his servants without activating the fault lines. However, he displays them before the eyes of his servants as an example of the inevitable end so that they might be in constant vigilance, and thereby be prepared for the hereafter. This is, in fact, a warning by Allah. Surely, these are not the only divine warnings. Floods, hurricanes, incurable illnesses and so on are of this kind. A poet says in this regard, "Death has approached me, with the excuse of a headache." However, it must here be emphasized again that if these did not occur, humans would carelessly fall into the claw of death all of a sudden, and perish. Yet, Allah, the most merciful, guides his servants through many divine manifestations so that they might be prepared for the inevitable realities before the die is cast. Hadrat Nader narrates, "One day it became dark at daytime. I ran to Anas to ask him, 'Has anything like this occurred at the time of the Prophet?' J, he answered, 'Allah forbid. We used to run into the mosques even if the wind blew a little bit faster.' 481,838,025,781,000. They used to do so, as prayer is a shield against many calamities and harms in this world, and also a shield against the hellfire. Allah says, N 177. 948690106045000 ISLAM, Spirit and Form. N 178. O you who believe, seek help with patient perseverance and prayer, for Allah is with those who patiently persevere. Baqarah 2-153. The dynasty of Pharaoh in Egypt is a very well-known one in his story. It was famous for tyranny and arrogance. It was in power in Egypt at the time of the Prophet Abraham, a.s. as well. The king called Pharaoh used to arrest any beautiful woman who came to his country, and murder her husband, in case she was married, and then ask her brother, in case she had one, to release her to him. When the Prophet Abraham, a.s., with his wife Sarah left the city of Urfa for Egypt after Nimrod perished, upon crossing the border the Pharaoh's men asked Abraham, a.s., about the woman accompanying him. Abraham, a.s., told them that she was his sister in religion, hoping to take them in by falling back upon a legal device for getting around the law. Upon his answer they let Abraham, a.s., free, but they took Sarah away to the palace. It is narrated in Bukhari. When Sarah came to the palace, she immediately made ablution and offered 2 units of prayer. She sought refuge in Allah, and Allah took care of her. And the Pharaoh who attempted to approach Sarah was out of breath because Allah was protecting her. And eventually the Pharaoh was paralyzed and alarmed. He finally let Sarah free. Moreover, he gave her his slave Hajar as a gift. The Pharaoh told the high officials of the palace who were bewilderedly watching him, "This woman is a jinn. If she were to stay with me a bit longer, I would have perished. I gave her my slave Hajar as a gift not to be harmed by her." So, this was a result of the 2 units of prayer offered by Sarah. Therefore, the Prophet, J, used to direct his household to form a prayer when faced with any difficulty or calamity, and also 8,134,353,238,500 Read the following verse from the Quran. 123,888,522,987,000. 24117309715500 Prayer, Salat, Namaz. Enjoin prayer on your people, and be constant therein. We ask you not to provide sustenance, we provide it for you. But the fruit of the hereafter is for righteousness. Taha 20-132. The Prophet, J, also let us know that the prophets before him also held fast to prayer when faced with any difficulty. The former prophets also used to hold on to prayer when faced with any tribulation or misfortune. Fadal al-Amal, 249. The Prophet, J, also said, Allah lends help to my people due to the prayers and the sincerity of the underprivileged. Nasai, Jihad, 43. Allama Shirani says, a country where people do not offer prayers is afflicted with problems and calamities, and a country where people offer prayers is kept away from them. Let nobody say, I offer prayers, and it is not my business if others do not offer prayers, for when a society is exposed to trouble or calamity it includes all members of it. The Prophet, J, was once asked about this point as follows. Are we to perish even though we have righteous people among us? The Prophet, J, answered, yes, when wickedness prevails. Muslim, Fitan, 1. Therefore, every believer who has been given the inherent power is responsible to enjoin the good and prohibit evil. On the other hand, the only way of being saved from the weight upon our shoulders through careless acts that draw divine warning or calamity is to hold fast to prayer. Namely, salvation from sins is possible only by repentance and prayer. The Prophet, J, told a sinful person who came to him and prayed together with him in repentance, Allah has forgiven your sins. Muslim, Abu Dawud, Bukhari. Regular prayer. 481,838,023,685,500 The orders of Allah in the Quran are not said with the word, pray, but they are said with the words, establish prayer. N 179. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and form. A prayer that is offered properly restrains the believer from sensual inclinations. It gives the believer ecstasy. It is said in the Quran, and establish regular prayer, for prayer restrains from shameful and unjust deeds, and the remembrance of Allah is the greatest thing in life, without doubt. Ankabut, 29-45. Prayer restrains the believer from misdeeds either before prayer or after it, and of course, during prayer. If prayer does not restrain one from misdeeds, that means he does not pray regularly. The Prophet, J, says about the prayers of these kinds of people, whoever is not restrained from clear and ambiguous misdeeds by the prayer he does, he moves away from Allah. Jam, al-Fawed, I 339. Therefore, the most important point to be observed during prayer is pious reverence. N 180. Prayers done unwa'rily. A prayer that is done improperly and a prayer in which Satan steps in is equivalent to a blow being struck on the person who prays it. It is said in the Quran, so woe to the worshippers who are neglectful of their prayers, those who want but to be seen of men, but refuse to supply even neighborly needs. Mon, 107, 4-7. Exegetes of the Quran identified 3 forms of heedlessness in prayer. Being careless when the time of prayer is due and delay it to do it another time. Not sensing prayer spiritually though being physically at prayer. Not taking heed of the precepts of prayer. Maulana Jalal al-Din Rumi says, I asked my intellect about, what is faith? And my intellect leaned over the ear of my heart and whispered, faith consists of manners. 81,343,524,066,500 The greatest of manners is reverence towards the Lord. And it is best displayed with worship, particularly with prayer. 123,888,522,987,000. 24117309652000 Prayer, Salat, Namaz. Being unaware about the requirements, precepts, and contents of the prayer is a compromise that Satan uses to strip off blessings. The inclination of the praying person towards unwariness allows Satan recourse to act. And, of course, a prayer that Satan weakens is not accepted. Some people display themselves as strong defenders of Islam, but they do not duly perceive the importance of prayer, and they are heedless about it. They underestimate the Quranic and prophetic orders and advice, and they remain indifferent to prayer. They neglect both pious reverence and the precepts of prayer. They perform prayers as if they wished to be free from it as soon as possible. May Allah save us from this kind of indifference. Those careless people are like those who go bankrupt. They have nothing left but weariness. The Prophet, J, says, there are many of those who pray, but they only get weariness and exertion. Nasai. Allah does not appreciate the other good qualities of those who do not pray regularly. Tabarani. Then again, the Prophet, J, describes one's negligence of proper prayer as theft. He says, the most wicked thief of humans is the one who steals from his prayer. Ahmad and Hakim. And as this kind of theft is done on behalf of Satan, the thief gets nothing but weariness. And the thief should remember the words of Allah in this regard. So woe to the worshippers who are neglectful of their prayers. Mon 107-4-5. As this verse propounds, those who are lazy cannot approach. 481,838,090,995,500 prayer. And those who are not able to overwhelm their unsubmissive self cannot penetrate into the spirit of prayer, and thus they cannot benefit from it. Whoever prays without observing the precepts of prayer, and offer his prayer not realizing that he is in Allah's presence, and holds worldly concerns in remembrance during prayer, that means he is not really praying. And his prayer remains in this world. N 181. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and form. So, the prayer that is supposed to mature one's faith in the heart ends up causing deprivation in the hands of such unwary people. And prayers of such individuals bring them nothing but eternal torment. The Quran says, the hypocrites, they think they are overreaching Allah, but He will overreach them. When they stand up for prayer, they stand without earnestness, to be seen of men, but little do they hold Allah in remembrance. Nisa 4-142. N 182. Those who keep themselves away from prayer. A saint of Allah warns those who are not among those who pray. Those who refrain from prayer because of worldly possessions will be resurrected and assembled with Quran for judgment. Those who do not pray because of being possessed by their power of ruling and administration will be resurrected with Pharaoh. Those who do not pray because of being a high and influential official will be resurrected with Haman, the minister of Pharaoh. And those who keep away from prayer because of inordinate love of gaining profit in business will be resurrected with Ubay bin Khalaf, an enemy of the Prophet. Those who neglect prayer live an unproductive life. They do not have the light of divine beauty in their faces. None of their deeds are rewarded. Their supplications to Allah are not accepted. They are also deprived of the love of saintly people. Their entire experience is in pain in accordance with the maxim, you die as you live. Their graves turn into a pit of hell where they find the rage of Allah against them. They are questioned strongly and finally thrown into hell. As narrated in a hadith of Bukhari, the Prophet, J, used to ask the companions after morning prayers if they had any dreams. Those who did used to tell their dreams, and the Prophet, J, used to interpret them. One day he again asked and then said, I had a dream. 2 persons came and took me away. 81,343,523,241,000. Then he told them the rest of the dream, describing to them the features of paradise and hell, particularly the suffering there. The story. 123,888,522,796,500. 24117309715500 Prayer, Salat, Namaz. Of a man in hell was related as follows. One of the men was being struck on the head with a stone. The stone hit so strongly that it was bouncing off. This happened over and over again. The Prophet, J, asked the two persons who took him away, "Who is this person?" They answered, "This man preferred sleeping to offering the obligatory prayers, and he gave up reading the Quran though he earlier had learned how to read it." Satan particularly tries to keep the servant away from prayer. Satan wants to make sure that the servant is kept away from divine mercy, as he knows the fact that he who has no prayer has also no religion. Tabarani. Therefore, foresighted believers protect themselves from the traps of Satan in this regard, and they care about prayer and do their best to make up the prayers they had been unable to offer in their proper time. The Prophet, J, says, "Whoever forgets his prayer, let him immediately offer it whenever he remembers. There is no other way to atone for it." Muslim, Masajid, 314. If the message of this saying to make up what is owed is not observed, the servant will be afflicted with a wretched state in the hereafter. Prayer as a means of differentiation. The Prophet, J, advised anyone who became Muslim. The symbol of Islam is prayer. Whoever prays in time, paying attention to the details, and wholeheartedly, this person is a believer. Fadal al-Amal, 255-256. 481,838,042,799,000. He used to teach those who embraced Islam how to pray, and he let them know that prayer is the pillar of religion, and it distinguishes the believer from the disbeliever. N 183. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and Form. N 184. The companions of the Prophet, J, regarded the avoidance of prayer as equal to disbelief. Abu Bakr used to tell the people who were around when it was time for prayer, "O people, arise, extinguish the fire you are in with prayer." Prayer is not only a means of distinction between the believer and the disbeliever, but it also distinguishes between believers with regard to their having different degrees. Abu Hurairah narrates this hadith. Two persons from the tribe of Uda came to the Prophet, J, to embrace Islam. Later, one of them was martyred on the battlefield. The other died a natural death 1 year after him. I dreamed that the one who died 1 year after entered paradise before the one who was tired. I was amazed and said, "Is not the degree of the martyr higher? Should not he have entered paradise first?" When I told the Prophet, J, about this, he said, "Do not you see how much reward the latter has?" He fasted in the month Ramadan during the extra year after the first was tired. He also offered more than 6,000 units of prayer. Ahmad, Ibn Maha. Regarding another occasion of this kind, the Prophet, J, commented to the companions, "Has not the person who died a year after worshipped more?" "Certainly," they replied. Then the Prophet said, "Has not he prostrated more than the one who died a year earlier?" "Certainly," they answered. And the Prophet, J, said, "There is as great a difference between them as between the sky and the earth." The privilege of prayer is stated in the following sayings of the Prophet, J. 81,343,522,161,500 inches. Allah did not enjoin anything superior than belief in prayer. If he were to enjoin anything superior, he would enjoin it on the angels. 123,888,523,050,500. 24117309715500 Prayer, Salat, Namaz. Whereas some of the angels bow down and some of them prostrate night and day. Prayer is the most valuable striving, jihad. When the individual stands up for prayer, Allah turns towards him. When he completes the prayer, Allah turns away. Fadal al-Amal, 256. If there comes a disaster or calamity from the sky, the people in mosques are saved from it. Fadal al-Amal, 256. The key to paradise is prayer. Tirmizi, Taharat, 3. Prayer is the sacrifice of every pious believer. Kuzai, Musnad, I, 181. The person who neglects a prayer is like the person who has lost all his wealth and family. Nasai, Ahmad. As prayer is so superior and important, Islam demands training in the early years of life for it. The Prophet, J, advises us to be very serious in this regard. Order your children to pray at the age of 7. At the age of 10, if they do not, beat them lightly. Let them also sleep by themselves, at this age. Abu Dawud. Summing up. It is noteworthy that prayer often begins due to a distress of the heart when passing through a test or affliction and progresses into experiencing joy on the occasion of celebration of the Eids. If we establish a symbolic connection here, we may say that those who regularly pray in this world will be rewarded with a festival in the hereafter, for prayer includes the meaning to lead the servant to perfection and divine reward. In short, prayer provides the following physical benefits. Prayer requires physical acts that are healthy for the body. It also organizes one's time during the day and regularizes one's entire life. Prayer provides spiritual benefits as follows. 56324564071500481838025781000. It provides, when performed properly, the joy of being in Allah's presence, meditation, comfort in the time of fear, pleasure in the time N185. 948690106045000 ISLAM. Spirit and form. N186. Of joy, sustaining the spiritual character of the soul, maintenance of faith, and a good relationship with the divine being. Prayer provides the following sociological benefits. The sense of coming together, knowing one another, friendship, and reinforcement of the bonds of brotherhood. It must be stated here that no excuse is acceptable for not attempting to offer prayer. Even those who are on the battlefield are supposed to pray by turns. And there can be no excuse for women as well, apart from those related to female health. The Prophet, J, was so serious about prayer that he warned us even when he was in his last moments of life. Be careful about prayer. We should forever be awake about prayer, taking heed of the above warning. Those souls who pay attention to this warning and perceive the importance of prayer, let it become the dearest joy of their life. They pull away from this transitory world, and reach union with Allah when they stand up for prayer. A sincere worshipper needs to embody the following qualities for the acceptance of his, her prayers. 1. Those who remain steadfast to their prayer. And those in whose wealth is a recognized right for the needy, who ask in him who is prevented, for some reason, from asking. And those who hold to the truth of the day of judgment. And those who fear the displeasure of their Lord. And those who guard their chastity. And those who respect their trusts and covenants. And those who stand firm in their testimonies. 8,134,357,937,500. And those who guard the sacredness of their worship. 123,888,522,987,000. 24117309652000 prayer, salat, namaz. Such will be the honored ones in the gardens of bliss. Marriage, 70, 23-35. O my Lord, please, let our prayers have the honor of being offered in their true meaning and wisdom, and let them be regarded as an ascension, Raj, to you. Let our prayers be our joy, and the delight of our souls both in this world and the hereafter. Amen.